Happy St. Patrick's Day to my fellow lucky Irishmen and women. We have 1% Irish on my dad's side. Ah. Today is also March 17th, 2026. My parents were wed on this day 60 years ago, and I was in the womb. And now I'm here helping you with your own womb and walls detox. Some of you who know me well are probably wondering how we got here because I've been the one always asking questions. I'm terribly shy. I'm a Buddhist biohacker. Imagine Pema doing this, let alone the electronics. I don't mind connecting with you all. It's the uploading part, putting things together, learning what tools to use. I only had a cell phone 4 years ago, 2022, or the end of 2021, the year my mom passed, of Maid. And in 1 year, March 17th, 2027, here in Canada's capital and in Canada, Maid will accept mental health as the sole reason to expire before we desire. I apologize. I never know where to look either. And it's not mental, it's environmental. I have an ACE score of 9 out of 10, which is your adverse childhood experiences. I didn't have an easy go of it. And the root cause is mold illness, toxins in our body and in our cells, plastics. Watch Netflix new plastic detox. It will go very nicely with my womb and walls trauma and toxin detox. It's for 40 days. The first 3 weeks when I was in crisis not last fall, but fall 2024, no doctor could help me. I love all, but I loved a soul deeply who had many strengths, beautiful brain that caused him a lot of suffering. He was the first man that I felt comfortable crying with at 50 years of age. I am a parentified, petrified, perfectionist problem solver, PTSD survivor, CPTSD actually. And I grew up feeling like a burden growing up on moldy military bases as the firstborn fixer, feeling of everything. I hear, smell, sense everything. I'm also a clairaudient healer. I didn't tell too many people about this because everybody thought I was weird to begin with. Sorry, that's Alexa going off because we keep having weather alerts. I keep trying to connect with you guys. We have been in freezing rain, 11 degrees one day, then -10 the next, and the environment is not very happy. So we've been losing power off and on and all of that fun stuff. Not for long. But if you have weather anxiety, it is because our bodies are constantly in fight or flight and you're a high sensing person. I'm talking to you. You're the 15 to 20% of the population. We are the canaries in the coal mine and we are being dismissed. In the fall of 2024, I had been with a new doctor for 6 years at this point in Waterloo. I had to travel from Ottawa to Waterloo and I didn't drive. My ex did. Bless his heart. But I couldn't figure out this last part. Every time I was in his car, I was in unbelievable pain. His car was quite dusty. So the mold, it was just so awful the amount of pain I suffered in my stomach. And I wouldn't go to doctors because I feared them because of the way they treated my mom. But this kind man said, I will go with you to all your doctor's appointments. This was 2016. The fall of 2024, after my third bout with COVID, I'm cleaning his hoarded home and it's filled with mold. It was an old water damaged, beautiful building. The bones were great, but the inside needed a lot of tender, loving care. And he was suffering deeply after major losses in his life. His brother died of suicide, and he was also a firstborn, lifelong, another Scorpio water sign, probably very intuitive, Indigenous background, very soulful. We only spoke once, and it was a month before he took his own life. I'm speaking for Patrick. I'm speaking for Sean Simpson here from Canada. Capital is big in the hockey world. I didn't know him about that. I just knew him about mental health because him and I were very quite vulnerable in our discussions about it. When you find a rare bird who's willing to be open and talk about their suffering because we suffered a lot, we found our people. And then I've been drowning since 2015, I'd say. That's when I left the Y for a little bit of leave because I had been bleeding internally since 2013 as a personal trainer and working the front desk. And I was opening at 5 a.m. I would get there earlier, 4 a.m., wake up at 3 a.m. to work out before the gym ever opened. Yes, I know that is a no-no. If anybody of my bosses is watching, because when I'm doing the leg press and I'm doing close to 400 pounds, if something should go wrong and I'm by myself, that would be a problem. I just always trust the universe. So that's what's brought me here and to you, and why I'm being overcoming my fears and connecting with you all, because we have 1 year to save souls in Canada who are being misdiagnosed with mental illness. My chronic anxiety and deep depression are all gone once my home was renovated from mold and I removed the toxic souls and energy that were in my life. These are the souls who cannot say I love you. These are the souls who cannot say I love you to themselves. And they are causing harm to themselves and their cells by drinking, taking man-made synthetic meds, trusting the doctors. It's no harm of theirs. Antibiotics do so much harm to our body. And my ex was taking so many for root canals and ear infections. And all of this is connected to our womb wounds. When we are born, many of us are born with CIRS, which is chronic inflammation response syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, CPTSD, MTHFR. In midlife, it's histamine overload. Things are going haywire, cytokine storms with our 8 internal systems, and mine were all crashing because I never took a pause for me. I always felt guilty, and I couldn't even sit through watching a show. I'm dyslexic, so I apologize if my words get jumbled. And so this is what's been keeping me sick, even though I looked fine as a personal trainer, competitive athlete, until I couldn't anymore. I tried all the diets that they say to try. It was never the food. My microbiome was destroyed at a very early age. At 6 months of age, my tonsils were taken out along with my uvula. That was my first lack of defense against illnesses, but I never caught colds really. I caught bigger things because I was trying to take such good care of myself, right? Just 1 second. You drink gallons of water. This is what you'll be doing on your fasting as well. We have to think of ourselves as nature. That's why I created the Bodhi berry peace tree method, because I want you to think of yourself as a tree. We're going to build strong grounding roots. And what's happening with the environment is happening with us. The more toxic things are getting out there, it's getting toxic for us. Venus syndrome, leaky body syndrome with their 40 leaky body barriers, climate change and more floods, all the plastics, the oil, all of that business. I've been a lifelong walker for trying to protect the environment, just little old me. But even me, who was trying to do everything right, I drank. It was a shame that I kept secret. I had a lifelong eating disorder, which I've now healed at the age of 50, which they say is very challenging to do. But I wanted to do everything to prove to my son that we can get better. And then when I stopped the booze, I felt worse. And then I also substituted the booze with ice cream. So one sugar for another, which is also not good for a microbiome. And all of my life, I probably had 5 safe foods that I could eat while working. Otherwise, I would go the whole day without eating and just eat at dinner time. Eggs were an issue, and I learned why. You learn in all of my videos that are coming up. I've uncovered the root cause of all of my digestion and food fears. And when we're refeeding our bodies after they're safe, we're going to do a 3-week fast. You can have nibbles of clean nuts if they've been soaked, almonds, if you just can't take it. But you'll find you'll have more energy when you're fasting. It's just how the body works. But I want you to rest. I want you to be in bed. I want you to sleep. I want you to cry. If you need help with that, I have videos to help you with that. Because we're going to start to see our inner child that's been waiting for us to show up. And you've been the beautiful, kind, loving soul helping everybody else but yourself as a healer and a feeler. And now it's time for you to feel you and your feelings. And let your inner child know that you finally see him or her, and you're showing up to protect him or her the way you wished you were protected growing up or by the medical system. My mom just gave up. She was being dismissed in the hallways, and she's just had the roughest go. She was put into the Royal several times. I've kept all of her emails because I was too scared to go to the doctors. I had great anxiety with the medical system because of how my mom was treated. She took meds. I never would. I never relied on man-made synthetic meds. And that in my 59th year of life, I apologize, I have leaky lung and life-threatening leaky muscle and 40 other leaky body barriers. But my body was collapsing with MS-type symptoms back in fall of 2024. This was after I was dismissed by my ex and my doctor. When I presented an autonomic nervous system seizure, flare right in the office, my blood pressure went from really low, which it normally is, to really high. And my doctor whispers to my ex, "Is this mental?" And I heard him like nod, "Yes." Oh, my stars. I would not have been in any of that Well, I can't take any of that back because it all led me to the root cause. I knew I had to stay there because his address was 155. My address equals 5. I'm guided by the numbers 5 and 15 and 55. So I knew I was going to find the root cause of my issues in this location. So I learned patience. And as a petrified perfectionist living in a hoarder's home, who is a stress cleaner, who eats clean and has clean labs, having to live in that environment, I learned patience. So I teach you all to live with PTSD peace once we learn the root cause of our deep suffering. I trust and hope that you are not as sick as me, but I was needing a cane. I was unable to swallow in my sleep. I was choking in my sleep, sorry, and I was unable to swallow. I was unable to write, type. I was giving gifts away to people because I wasn't able to write very well. I didn't know if I was going under. I've had many close calls with death, twice with COVID, the first time during the first week in March of 2020. Yes, it was March 7th to the 14th-ish there. Yeah, I saw my life flash before my eyes. So I'm speaking to the competitive athletes and the Olympians who are doing everything right and are expiring, like Sean Simpson, who had moved into a new location in a basement, which I suspect has mold. It's not the stuff you can see all the time necessarily. It's hidden in the walls and mold spores in the air and in the carpets and such. We still have mold in my home, but it's not as bad as it was. I had the floors removed, walls removed. We have to have some carpets on the stairs because I live in a co-op, and the basement still has mold in the carpets, and that's where I work out. But we work out differently now because we can't work out in gyms. But the way we work out is just slower, easier. It's 3 minutes at a time while we're waiting for our teas to be made. We do 3 minutes of plank, 3 minutes of push up, 3 minutes of squats, 3 times a day. We don't do it all at once. You do as much as you can until exhaustion, and that's how you build muscle. And then each meal we will have when we are refeeding ourselves after our fast, we'll each have 30 grams of protein at least. I am a OMAD eater, and I'm about to do my seasonal spring detox next week. If you want to join me, you can learn more at Dee's Dharma. I'll have the link, and I have all the products I use for my detox with the autophagy lifestyle medicine listed in our Amazon Zenden, also in the comments. And I'm putting together my Buddhist biohacker Bible on video because everything takes so long for me because electronics harm my body, the EMFs. If you're dealing with the electronics, my high sensing souls, please make sure you have a pillow for your laptop. And then I also have like a heating blanket. So layers, don't put any electronics in your pockets to the men. I've never put earphones in my ears. I've never had chronic ear infections. My ex often did. Also, when you're talking on the phone, I do speaker. I don't do this unless it was the old school phones. We have to be mindful with our electronics. I also have a little plastic screen also for my laptop. For the high sensing soul, for sleep hygiene, no electronics in your room. I have an Alexa in my room though, and I ask her what time it is with my eyes closed because I wake up often around 5 a.m. Then I just want to make sure it's not 3 a.m. because in my old days, I had chronic insomnia and my liver was always waking me up between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. because my liver was overloaded. I was addicted to Diet Coke and canned drinks, and I drank gallons of water, and often it was in these 5-gallon huge water jugs. Speaking of recycling, do you know that companies, it's only 9% of things that get recycled? Of all of these things we've been recycling, I knew there was a problem there because the companies say it's too expensive to recycle. We are in a problem here. It's environmental health, not mental health. For anybody who's suffering with chronic anxiety and depression like I did, even though I've been leading a life of love, life of service, cheerer of the underdog, lover of all unconditionally, because I hurt so many people unintentionally when I was suffering and didn't know better. I drank to self-soothe myself to help me sleep. Insomnia for me was so bad. As a light sleeper, my ex would say, you could hear a mouse toot. He was probably right. If you've had a heart attack, hi Bill, this is for you. It's not just for the Olympians, but those are the ones who want their bodies to work at high performance, like I was trying to. I loved running. I was gifted with hybrid short and long twitch muscles, and I have a hybrid brain. I'm a very rare bird. And I had to play stupid most of my life, which was challenging. But I recently heard a quote that it takes a smart person to know when to be stupid or something like that. Anywho, to de-stress, before we're going to bed, yes, so no electronics in your bedroom. So with the Alexa, I have it covered with an eye mask as well. That's the only electronic is in my room. My phone is down in the living room. Probably not a good idea. And it was challenging when I was in crisis and I wasn't sure I was going to be here the next day. Like my son Thomas, who passed at the age of 24 in 2017. Thomas is with me. He was suffering also with lifelong health challenges as well that nobody could really diagnose. And a lot of these illnesses weren't around 100 years ago. It's because of what's been happening in the environment. If you want to heal autoimmune issues, this is for you. Vicky, who's been dismissed and serving our country in the military, a firefighter, excuse my language, badass woman. I wouldn't want to mess with her. And she was serving our country, and she is being dismissed. She cannot get certain disabilities that she's qualified for. We grew up on moldy military bases. My mom worked at one of the most moldiest places in Canada's capital that they had to blow it up, the Central Experimental Farm. Hi, Mom, on your wedding anniversary day. I feel her around all the time. We have a better relationship now that she's passed. Because if she gets to hear me talk, now you guys get to hear me talk. She was always talking, but I love being a listener. This is not like me, but I don't want anybody else to suffer. And now my message is getting out louder, longer. So that's a good thing. So it's taken me away from the videos and the online stuff. And I'm trying to get this all done frugally because I'm living on $100 a month for food since the fall of 2024. And stress, chronic stress is the driver of everything. And this began in the womb for many firstborns because we received the highest toxic flush in the womb. This is messages for V. You've been waiting and trying to find the root cause of your issues. And until we detox our home, we have to renovate our home. We have to be in a safe space because we can't detox the toxins that are stored in our tissues and the stored trauma until we are in a safe space, because that's when our sympathetic nerve will finally relax and go into parasympathetic nerve. And it's the only way you can begin to heal. That's why it's called de-stress with DSOS. When someone would tell me to de-stress or you're too stressed, these things were trigger words for me because I wore them as a badge of honor. I need to do more to prove my worth because I grew up in childhood trauma. My mom working at Agriculture Canada as a lab tech with a brilliant mind. I love going in and looking under the microscope. They had to blow up the building because it was so filled up with mold. And then they were going to rebuild, but the soil was too toxic. And guess where it's located? Right across the street from the Ottawa Hospital, our major Ottawa hospital, the Civic. And the Royal Hospital is across the street from that. People are helping people in toxic buildings with toxic air, and it's not mental, it's environmental. And then they give them medicine because they trust the doctors. I have never used any medicine. I have lied to doctors and said that I would. If I Google and I see that it harms my liver, I don't touch it because I was abusing alcohol. And I'm a health nut. So much shame I had with that. And in 2017, I let that out on Facebook. It was the hardest thing I ever did, along with telling souls that I would smoke 5 cigarettes a day just to help me go to the bathroom because my system was so banged up. When you're in chronic stress, your body can't relax and let go. It makes so much sense. But then when it does, it can sometimes be loose stools. I've had chronic nose, leaky eye. If you're having chronic root canals, that's also chronic inflammation response syndrome. And bad air, if you have really bad air breath coming out of in your room when you wake up, that's gases in your gut that need to be relieved. You can do the corn test too to see how your digestion's going, but that isn't a determination of your health. A determination of your health is going to bed excited to go to bed at 9 p.m. and waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. and you get to see the pre-dawn red light. My greatest part of the day. And then I actually do red light therapy with my cat Bumper. There's lots of videos on that about that as well. Red light therapy I've been doing since 2010 when NASA said it was all right to use it. I was using it on my plants first and then on me. I was back in the day just using the bulb. So when I go to sleep now, but in the morning, Semper and I, my cat, will do red light therapy together. And I put it on whatever's tender. And at nighttime, I put it on the back of my neck. And it's for 30 minutes and I have to fall asleep with it. You really dig your neck in there. And then when you're going to sleep, you're going to do this. This is also how I do lymphatic drainage throughout the day. I don't wear any makeup anymore since I turned 50, really. But when I go out, I do. I'm still too nervous to be seen totally naked, is how I say it. But I'm doing this right now because I'm a little nervous. So I'm just trying to do a little bit tapping while I'm massaging my body. And all I use is castor oil, hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, vitamin A. And that's about it. A few other things, which I share on my other channels, as this is our primary environmental health channel. So we're going to de-stress, detox, de-bloat, declutter for deep peace. And this is what you'll be learning in my longer videos and on detail at Dee's Dharma, and my store that will be opening soon will have your little Buddhist biohacker's Bible, and how I'm proving my DBM5 method challenges the system's mental health system's DSM5 method. If you are somebody of influence, because I have no way to get this message out to save lives in a year, because it's not mental illness. My chronic anxiety is gone. My chronic depression is gone. If you have a high sensitivity to sound, it is linked to a gene in our brain with misophonia that heightens dark thoughts, especially with 16-year-old girls and 24-year-old boys. I've had this lifelong though, and when I was around toxic souls, it was worse. And the moldy environments, which I've lived in them all as low income, 3 jobs, fighting for child support or any support, and getting the bare minimum, not being allowed to ask for more unless I go to court. The system doesn't see souls like us. We are being dismissed because we're thinking there's something wrong with us, because we are parentified, petrified, perfectionist people pleasers. And we begin to believe it, even though we're doing all the things right, especially using autophagy lifestyle medicine, not relying on man-made meds, processed food, processed sugar, and booze. I only eat out once a month, and it's Domino's pizza. I'm not going to do them, but here's a tip for you. No more tomatoes if you do Alfredo sauce. And I can have pretty much any pizza I like. And yes, stuntmen do, if you're watching, I do like pineapple on my pizza. It's good for your microbiome. So what we're trying to do when we refeed, I made a jungle juice is what I'm calling it, because we need 25 to 30 different strains of vegetables and fruit. Vegetables is the primary. We need proteins. Each meal you have will have 30 grams of protein minimum. I only eat 1 meal a day. It's just how my body likes to work. But I also eat when I'm hungry. I will not starve my body unless I'm in a fast and I'm in crisis and I need to heal, like I was in 2024. I couldn't even lift myself out of a tub, and prior to that, I was lifting a 50-pound kettlebell. Because the weather has been so dry in here and wonky, and with the mold, my body is also not feeling that great. So I'm having to manage a little bit more than normal, and I'm very nervous about what's going on with the world and the medical system. I've written to all the CMHAs with no responses back. There's probably nothing they can do because they're following a system. I don't know what to do. If you're watching this and you're of influence and you can help me with this message, either by going on a podcast with me, let's use the luck of the Irish today. If there's anybody in the athletic hockey world, mental health world, Dr. Gabor Mate and we agree it's not PTSD disorder, it's a response. Everything that was happening to me was a response because our bodies are highly intelligent, sensing souls. They're warning us of danger. That's our chronic runny nose. We're putting something in our body, either by choice or we are unaware. So I used to always say our habits determine our health, but not unless we're living in toxic caves, right? We want coziness. So my Amazon Zen Den also has a lot of the items that are in my home, which was designed on Feng Shui principles. And I did it during COVID, and Amazon was the only thing open. And my mom had passed, and we had just completed a year and a half reno here. It took forever because our unit was so bad, or so bad. So I'm lingering with chronic conditions, but I'll take it. I can walk. I'm independent. I can open jars again. I am looking for a roommate though, because my son, who will be moving out, flying the nest with his lovebird near to where her mom lives, and to start her career in massage therapy. She went the medical school route. She was going to do that, and she had a burnout, and she was smart enough. I love her so much. She was raised by a very strong mother, and it's also her birthday today. So happy birthday, Lee, if you see this. You raised a beautiful daughter. I'm learning a lot from these 2 lovebirds because it's one of the most strongest relationships I've ever seen. There's always improvement. That's what Mama Lovey Pizza's here. We can always learn, right? That's what we're here to do, to grow strong, growing roots. So yes, so if there's anybody out there who can help me, Jane Bonda, you're big with the environmental health. Aaron Brockovich, It's not mental, it's environmental health. I had one bipolar episode. One. My mom had many, but it happened when my ex's brother committed suicide 10 days after my birthday, 3 weeks after his. And the ex and I had really decided that we were going to go each other's way about 5 days before this happened, but we were celebrating my birthday and we were heading home, and then we got the news. So I decided to stay with him. I was the only person he had left in his family. His mom and his dad had also passed. I had met him when his mom passed. I loved him so much, so much. I still do. I send love and grace all the time because he's still living in his home that is filled with mold. And I'm worried about his home in Cancun that had like water damage. Anywho, so we went to the funeral last minute. The day we found out, we were on a plane to Alberta, Medicine Hat. And Patrick was heavy in the speed skating world, and I got to meet a lot of those people in his world and learning about his lifelong struggles with mental health. Despite doing all the things and struggles with alcohol because we were self-soothing ourselves. I totally understood it. And when I spoke to him once, I got it. And I also asked him if he was a high sensing soul. I thought it was just a Scorpio thing, really, a water sign, because we're water, right? We're nature, and medicine uses man-made synthetic meds. We need to treat ourselves like a tree. Don't put anything into our bodies that we wouldn't put into a tree. Water is all we need, and a few healing teas, and I list them all. They're all in my Amazon Zendan, and they'll be in this the Bodhi Berry Peace Treat manual that I'll have out very shortly, I promise. I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have and my limited knowledge on technology. And I need help getting this message out so nobody dies of MAID because of mental health. So I'm going to this funeral. It's high pressure. This man can't handle his anger well on a good day, and he's very stressed, very stressed. So I'm trying to be the calm in the storm. I start smoking like a chimney because I couldn't go to the bathroom and my nerves were just shot. So then I started going highs and lows, highs and lows. I wasn't sleeping, and I'm like losing my mind, literally, dealing with a man at night who's losing his. And then we're doing all of this traveling, going to different Airbnbs, somebody's home. One of his relatives was actually going through a reno, so there was dust, but I didn't know it at the time about mold illness, and I was allergic to the air, like some people are to peanuts, with mold illness and sick building syndrome, which cannot get diagnosed in Canada's capital because doctors won't diagnose it. They don't have the tools for environmental illness. I was just looking for a P test when I was in crisis on my mycotoxin levels and biotoxin levels. I'm not a doctor. I'm a primal personal trainer for functional fitness. I believe life is simple. I'm a Buddhist biohacker who's been using autophagy lifestyle medicine just because I was poor, basically, couldn't afford meds, and I didn't want to do harm to my body. I just always felt like I was a delicate fat flower, and it was my job to protect my body. And the way I did that was love. That's all I knew. And I was lost for most of my life until I uncovered the root cause, and I wasn't scared anymore. And that was after being dismissed by almost everybody that I know, just like how my mom was. I was always rooting for her, but from afar, because our relationship was always very challenging. I worry that my son feels the same way, but when I asked him how he would describe me for the beginning of my book, he said, love. So that's how my name came to be, Mama Lovey Peace, because if him and his love, Mackenzie, were to have children, I wanted to be called Lovey or Mama Lovey, something like that, because I never think of myself as old. I've always had youthful energy and optimism and joy for life and childlike wonder, a love of learning, all of that fun stuff, and very athletic and competitive. And I was very frustrated when I developed plantar fasciitis and plantar warts on the regular. My plantar fasciitis was so bad, I had to do that electronic shock stuff for your feet. It was worse than giving birth, but I did it, and it helped awaken things down there to get things going again, but I'll never be able to run again. So I'll leave this now. Just know my message is for anybody who wants to do this detox. It'll be the hardest thing you ever do. But all I kept saying was, it's not forever. It's just for right now. And I could see improvements from day one. And that's what I want for you. I just want you well. And it doesn't have to cost a lot. We can do it bare minimum. You can buy more things, but you don't need more things. Your primary concern is no toxic energy around your bright light. You need people that are going to help you and lift you up and wipe your tears because you're going to be crying a lot. Because all of your suffering is going to come up. Today is March 17th. So my journey began on this day 60 years ago, and it's in my cells. The arguing my parents had constantly in my cells. being blamed for their divorce by my mom in my cells. These are the mother-father wounds that I help you heal. This isn't bad. We need a world where it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Then when we start to cry, we have to stop because it's not acceptable to cry. But this is how you detox your trauma. When the tears come, you have to let them come. I have had a lot of traumas. I thought the word was naive, but it's just too trusting. This is why I love health detective shows and such, because I like to know why the dark side does what they do. Even I've had dark thoughts. They're always about myself mostly, but sometimes when I was in a very dark, inflamed brain state, your brain goes into dark places. I've had my exit routine solidified since the age of 5. It's when I couldn't handle the chaos of my life. So this is what I'm wishing for you today and every day on St. Patrick's Day. That we protect our PTSD piece. I hear people saying, no, you need chaos or stuff. You need stress. No, you need to de-stress with SOS. With our 40-day trauma and toxin detox. I did this for you, and it's frugal, and it won't be expensive. I wanted it affordable for everybody, for the homeless. But I need to make money in order to give you these things. So I needed to charge a little bit of money. I want you to have peaceful sleep, peaceful stools, peaceful cells, and a peaceful soul with peaceful soil. It's all connected. And together we can heal. We are all connected. Everything is connected. We are nature. You are medicine. And we can heal in any environment as long as it is safe. This means what we put into our bodies, the plastics, the mold, the toxic energy, the chronic stress, the processed booze, foods, sugars. We only want foods and drink that come from the sun. Mother Earth is giving us our medicine. The autophagy lifestyle tools that I use were the infrared sauna blanket. I have everything listed at Amazon Zenden. I use my black red light belt that I would take on a desert island if I could. Which reminds me, we're going on our second peace retreat in the Gatineaus at Lac Philippe and Taylor Lake this fall. Hopefully Lac Philippe will be open. I've been waiting. I've been going there since the 70s. And we'll be connecting together as a community with high-sensing souls who care about Mother Earth and our own Earth, which is our microbiome, which is our gut. Our gut, they say, is our second brain. I say it's our first brain. And we need to protect it. And we are living with life-threatening leaky bodies and don't know it. And then doctors are giving us diagnoses like fibromyalgia and all of these autoimmune things. We can reverse disease. It is a result of chronic stress from chronic inflammation, which causes chronic disease. Everything can be reversed, especially if it's caught early in time. I can't say everything can be reversed, I'm hoping. But the crucial part is we need to get into a safe environment. If I can do it with a ACE score of 9 out of 10, you can do it too. I'm sending deep love and loving kindness from Canada's capital. I'm a terribly shy soul. I'm not scared anymore. I go out dancing by myself with my gray hair because Mother Nature knows best. I'm actually enjoying the process. But what I was doing before, here's another tip for you lovely souls who were asking me, how to color your hair safely. Use castor oil. Make sure it's in a hexane-free glass bottle. We also do that, with our autophagy lifestyle medicine. We rub that on our liver at night, put an organic cotton shirt, a rattier one, on it overnight because it can stain, but we'll put the red light therapy on our belly with the castor oil on our liver with the shirt and then the red light 15 minutes before bed. Then we put the red light on the back of our neck. I just love it. And then I also have one for my face. I've been doing that for quite a while. And the one I have for my face was only about $100. And of all my red light products, this one has lasted the longest. Also, I will list it below. I don't list them individually. I just list you to my store because I have so many things in my store and I want to get this out to you as quickly as possible. In the future, I hope I'll be able to have somebody do this for me. I just can't be online very long. I'm so sorry. And the other autophagy, we're going to have a portable massager and I put it on my lower back. You put red light on your belly. That's in the morning after you wake up because your body might feel a little stiff once you're detoxing and eliminating toxins from your body. We're also going to have a grounding mat, sorry. You can also put it on your bed. I put it under my feet. My cat loves it too. He just comes. And my cat Thumper, or my dog Thumper, my dog Bella, my Chihuahua, you'll see her in all of my advertising. That's my dyslexia I did back there. Is she had breast cancer and she lived 5 years longer than the vet expected she would. And she was doing red light with me every morning as well. It works. I don't think I'd be here without it. So we're doing, to make sure that we're always having our lymphatic flow while we're at rest, we're going to have a massager that goes under our feet. We can put it under our knees, under our back, upper back. We need to make sure when we're always sitting, I like to say, put your elbows to your back of your chair, and that will align your neck to your spine. So you're sitting properly. Make sure that you're trying to push out your chest proudly, right? Because as a personal trainer, most of our issues are located in our back because of our front, because we're like this all day. I even have to catch myself. I even have a back belt that I got from Amazon that I wear that forces my muscles to go back. It is also in my Amazon Zen Den store. It also has many non-toxic products for your home. So there's also, to go along with the massager, we have a vibration plate that I use, and I stand on that for 10 minutes each day. You can do more if you want, but build up slowly. And this is good for lymphatic flow because we can't work out hard anymore because of the DOMS effect for us personal trainers and Olympic athletes and you NHL players that I've connected with. The DOMS effect, what was going to kill me that first year? I'm out of the danger zone, I believe. I will not step into a doctor's office anymore. I have the fear again because I had somebody with me on every one of my appointments. And he dismissed me along with my doctor in my darkest hour in that doctor's office when he said, it's mental. And I would have never gone. I asked him before we went, I said, you know, this isn't mental, right? Because that's what they're going to say, like they did with my mom, who had a brilliant mind as a lab tech. It's not mental. I'm mental peaceful. Tears does not mean I'm not at peace. It means my body is not stressed anymore. And I'm feeling. I don't distract my depression. The souls who drink to cry, I get it. Souls who drink to get angry, I get it. Souls who drink to fall asleep, I get it. Souls who drink to eat, who are anorexic during the day, I get it. I was that. We have to stop. I am mothering the unmothered. If you want a happy womb and happy walls in a toxic world, we can do this together. Join me on Dee's Dharma on Substack, where we're learning together how to live a non-toxic life on a poisonous planet. And I'm glad that my son actually, and I'm surprised I'm saying this because I designed my home with hooks on the lower level for the children, that they're not having children because the state of the earth is not good. It's not good. But there is hope. And that is what has brought me here in my darkest hours when I have wished to not be here and have tried a few times to not be here. I always had hope. There was always just a glimmer of hope. Just always. I have many tools on my De-Stress with DSOS on YouTube to help you heal your brain. I created YouTube channel just to protect me when I was in the doctor's offices and they wanted to bring up mental health. I was showing them why everything was connected and how I would help myself with my PTSD symptoms. We don't swear. We don't say words like crazy and insane. We say wild instead. That was wild. That was wild. Please stop using those words. Oh, that would be my greatest wish, other than stopping MAID laws and then getting recognized for disability, please. It's hard living on $100 a month, and I don't know how much longer I have. I could be in much better shape than I am, but I'm also very grateful for where I am. You know what I mean? And if you're in chronic pain or you're having trouble sleeping, on my other channel, I talk about different plant strains that I made when I was in crisis to help manage the acute pain that you're in. And we need to drink lots of water. I can't help anybody who refuses to not drink water. I can't help you parent yourself, but I give you the tools for the souls who were never mothered, to mother yourself and yourselves for a happy soul. The root cause is happy stools, though. They should be smooth. You should have one when you wake up, right when you wake up. And it's quickly in, quickly out, 2 squares of toilet paper usually. And then the other time, you'll go to the bathrooms after you eat, just like a dog, right? And we worry when their stools aren't happy. It's the same with us. And they should be of a nice color and banana shaped and stool. I didn't even want to toot in somebody's company or go to the bathroom. I had a date from Ottawa in Toronto one time. I took a plane and everything. Toxic plane air. Don't let me get me started there. That's where I was going with the funeral with the ex. That's my bipolar episode was a result of the airplane air. That's why I've been reaching out to airline stewardess and airline pilots. Your profession is very toxic with your air. I worry about the ones that are very sick and they don't know why. This is why. And that was the only time I had a bipolar episode, but it was like a blessing in disguise. I was going around stores and I was starting to steal things because nobody could see me. I was still living with the ex. This was January. His brother passed away in November 28th of 2018. Then we had the holiday season out in Medicine Hat for 3 weeks, and I couldn't leave him over his birthday. His birthday's on Christmas. What kind of a soul would that be? So instead, that's how I met his brother, thankfully. And we had that phone call because I was surprising him because it was his 50th birthday and I was connecting with all of his Facebook friends. And so we had a unveiling of all of these cards and letters at a crucial time in his life where he needed to feel hugged from the universe. And I'm so glad that I was able to do that for him. I love birthdays. For those that I don't feel to be embarrassed, I will make birthday cakes for them on my Facebook profile at DN Berry if you want to connect with me there. So yes, so the airplane air is very toxic. And so I shared all of my autophagy lifestyle medicine tools, the red light, this massage belt, the grounding mat, red light belts, vibration plate, and then the healing teas. If you're not taking vitamin D, K2, and magnesium, I also share in one of my videos how to take all that, but that'll also be in your Bodhi Berry Peace Tree Manual with the DBM5, challenging the DSM5. I also have a letter for you to bring to your doctor that will ask him if you are in a location on this planet where your doctor will test for these things. They cannot where I live in Ontario, Canada. I live in Canada's capital, and I tried in Waterloo and I tried here to no avail. And I tried all of the walk-in clinics. I can go to functional medicine. There's some great ones here. Dominic Hussey, I value him. I'm hoping that when the time comes, if I can't find a roommate who's like me, who's mindful, doesn't drink, doesn't swear, probably won't date anymore, who just wants to live in peace and just enjoy their moments because they're doing stuff to help their worlds around them, whatever it may be. Most of us are in the mental health field, nutrition, holistic health healers. My scientists I've been reaching out to lately, I need you. And together we can heal. I need you guys to help me to share this message with others. I don't ask for much. I just want this message to get out, and I have no means to advertise. Big Pharma doesn't like me because I don't use man-made meds. I never have. I was prescribed an antibiotic during my most crucial time, and that probably would have killed me. It was an antibiotic that he didn't really know about either, but it was to treat SIBO, which many of us have, which causes many of our autoimmune issues. SIBO is small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. I have now come up with my own natural antibiotic, and I'll be doing that again on this spring Woman Walls flush that I'm going to do. It's the detox, but you can't do anything, my loves, until you are in a safe space. There's free ways, easy ways, and more advanced ways to test your home for mold. I can't afford the more expensive, but I did have my whole place renovated, and your smell and your leaky body will also tell you. If you've removed all the toxins from your body and you're not putting toxins in, which means no scents around you, that means us Buddhist folks, no more incense. Those are actually quite bad. My ex was smart about that. He never enjoyed those. If you're having chronic ear infections, chronic pain, I have all my original body parts, my knees, even my wisdom teeth. Stay connected, and together we will heal. You are not alone.
Okay, so what if the root of our modern health crises isn't actually in our heads, but in our environment? Today, we're going to dig into a really provocative framework that kind of flips everything we think we know about wellness on its head. It puts our planet, our surroundings, right at the center of the entire conversation.
And that leads us to a really central and kind of challenging question, right? When our bodies just crash and we get these symptoms that everyone's quick to label as, mental health issues, is that really the whole story? Or could it be something else entirely, like a deep biological injury that's being triggered by the world we live in?
And that, right there, is the core idea of this whole framework. The thinking is that so many of the health crises we're seeing, they don't actually start in our mind. They're biological injuries. The argument is that our planet, which is becoming more and more, let's say, poisonous, is literally hijacking our body's most basic systems.
Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this hijacking actually happen? Well, let's break down what the source material calls the synergistic crash. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the point where all these different things in our environment just pile on and completely overwhelm our biology.
So this framework, it really zeroes in on two major culprits. And these are things that, honestly, a lot of us deal with every single day. First up, you've got toxic walls. We're talking about living in places with mold. This can kick off stuff like CIRS, that's chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which basically puts your nervous system on high alert like 24/7. And then there's the plastic trap. And this one's wild because even when you're trying to be healthy, the source says something as simple as drinking from a plastic bottle can be a steady drip of chemicals that mess with your system. And get this, check out the analogy here. It's brilliant. These chemicals, they don't just, float around doing nothing. They act like hacked text messages inside your body. They pretend to be your natural hormones and start sending out all these fake signals. And they can seriously mess with your brain, your heart, your kidneys. We're talking about a total communication breakdown, but on a cellular level.
So where does all this lead? Well, the end results, according to this source, is something called a life-threatening leaky body. And what that means is basically that natural wall between the outside toxins and your inner cells, it just breaks down. It gets compromised, and that leaves all your internal systems totally exposed. But here's the thing, this vulnerability, it doesn't just start with us.
Right, so like I was saying, this story, it doesn't just start and end with our generation. The framework argues this is actually a multi-generational problem and it gets passed down through something it calls the toxic flash.
3. Just remember that number. It's absolutely crucial here because the source claims that just one toxic exposure to one person can have a direct biological impact on 3 generations, all at the same time.
So here's how this 3-generation rule actually works. And this is based on a 2015 endocrinology report. Okay, so picture this. A pregnant mother is exposed to some kind of toxin. So, number 1, she's affected, right? Then, number 2, her developing child is also directly affected. But, and this is the crazy part, it goes one level deeper. The reproductive cells that are already forming inside that developing child, they get exposed too. That is one single event hitting 3 generations all at once. Mind-blowing.
And all of this brings up a really interesting concept called firstborn vulnerability. The idea here is that the first child often gets the biggest hit, like the largest dose of the mother's entire lifetime of built-up toxins, because her body essentially offloads a bunch of them during that first pregnancy.
Which leads us to another really powerful analogy. These firstborns, they effectively become the canaries in the coal mine. They're the early warning signs of just how toxic our environment has become. And according to the source, they're often born with their nervous systems already on high alert, already super sensitive.
Okay, so, wow. If the problem is this deep and systemic, is there even a path forward? Is there any hope? Well, yes, the framework does propose a solution. And it's all focused on cellular renewal, a journey from what it calls this petrified state to a state of calm.
So you have the petrified state where the body is just completely hijacked, stuck in high alert mode, and then you have the goal, which is calm. And it's really important to get this. Calm isn't just a feeling, right? It's an actual physiological state. It's when your body's natural systems are finally restored after all that toxic interference is gone.
So the big question is, how do we get there? The method proposed here is called root cause autophagy. Now, autophagy, just think of it as your body's ultimate built-in recycling program. It's this amazing natural process where your cells go around, they clean out all the damaged junk, and then they reuse it for energy or to build new, healthy cells. So this approach is all about intentionally kicking that system into high gear to repair DNA and finally clear out all those cells that have been hammered by environmental toxins.
And this isn't some forever and ever kind of thing. The specific protocol that's laid out in the source is a 40-day detox, and it's designed specifically to kickstart that really deep cellular cleansing.
This whole method is built on 4 key pillars, called the 40s. It's a really holistic approach. First, you've got de-stress, which is all about calming down that nervous system that's been stuck on overdrive. Then, detox, pretty straightforward, actively getting those toxins out. Next is de-bloat, which tackles the body's inflammatory response. And finally, declutter. And this one's cool because it's not just about your body, but also about clearing out your actual physical environment.
Now, of course, a framework this bold needs some serious grounding, right? You can't just make these claims. So let's look at both sides of it. The scientific research that's cited in the source material and the very personal human story that's behind it all.
So the source material, it doesn't just pull this out of thin air. It points to a growing body of research.
You can actually trace a line from way back in 1992 with a Danish study on how the environment impacts reproductive health, all the way to that 2015 report we mentioned on the generational effects of BPA, right up to this year, 2024, with some pretty shocking research that found microplastics inside human blood clots in the heart, brain, and legs. Yeah, inside blood clots.
But you know, this isn't just about the data and the lab reports. This quote from the author really gets to the heart of it. It captures that deep personal frustration that drives this whole framework. It's that feeling of being dismissed, of being told it's all in your head, by a medical system that, from her perspective, just isn't equipped to deal with these kinds of environmental injuries. And when you hear about the author's own experience, it's really striking. She talks about reacting to sick buildings with the same severity as a peanut allergy, about being unable to get a disability diagnosis in Ontario, Canada, living on just $100 a month for food, and the sheer commitment it took. She had to do that 40-day detox 3 separate times just to start feeling well again.
So we kind of end up right back where we started, with a big question. This entire framework is really asking us to completely rethink where we look for answers to our health problems. It's suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the most powerful tools for our health and well-being aren't found in our medicine cabinets. Maybe they're in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the very buildings we live in. It's a huge, challenging idea for sure, and definitely leaves you with a lot to chew on.
So what if so many of our modern health issues, things like anxiety, chronic fatigue, what if they aren't actually separate problems? What if they're all just symptoms of one single underlying cause? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty provocative theory from a text by an advocate named Deanne, and she points the finger at one main culprit: environmental toxins. The whole theory kicks off with this really startling claim. The idea here is that our health problems don't just pop up when the symptoms appear, but way, way before that, like even before we're born. Okay, so what's the evidence for something like that? Well, the text points to this truly shocking statistic. 100%. That's the percentage of human placentas where a study apparently found microplastics. So the author's conclusion? The one protective barrier we thought we had in the womb, it's been breached. And this brings us right to the core of her theory, something she calls the firstborn toxic flush. She's proposing a very specific biological process for how generations of these accumulated toxins are literally passed down. So how is this flush supposed to work? The text claims that the firstborn child essentially acts as a kind of biological filter for the mother. They inherit the highest concentration of all the toxins. We're talking phthalates, microplastics, everything the mother has built up over her entire life. According to this way of thinking, the result of this massive toxic transfer is a condition the author has named life-threatening leaky body syndrome. It basically means newborns are starting life with a totally compromised foundation, their little systems already overwhelmed and just on high alert from day one. And according to the author, this toxic exposure doesn't just stop at birth. Oh no. The next piece of her argument zeroes in on our daily routines, and specifically the products we put on our bodies. And this leads us to what she calls the cosmetic crisis. You can really see the stark choice laid out on this slide. On one side, you've got all the conventional products, which she calls liquid plastics, and links to some really serious health risks. And on the other side, she proposes this radical pivot to a super simple nature-first approach. And here it is. This is what that minimalist approach actually looks like. The author says that since 2017, she has literally replaced her entire bathroom cabinet with just these 5 ingredients. The whole point, of course, is to dramatically slash her daily exposure to toxins. All right, so this brings us to what is probably the most challenging argument in the entire text, a complete and total reframing of mental health. The argument she makes is that what we call mental illness is actually a biological response to an environmental problem. And this slide just captures her argument perfectly. She is directly challenging the medical standard for mental health, the DSM-5, by creating her very own model, the DBM-5, or D's biological model. So instead of seeing things like anxiety and depression as mental disorders, she redefines them as biological injuries caused by our environment. So what are these biological injuries she's talking about? Well, the first one she identifies is CIRS. She describes it as this body-wide inflammatory reaction to biotoxins, especially from mold in water-damaged buildings, what some people call sick building syndrome. She also points to things like mast cell activation syndrome and histamine overload. In her model, what we might call an anxiety or a panic attack is actually the body's over-the-top physical reaction to being constantly flooded with all these triggers from the environment.
So, if you're going to change the diagnosis, the argument is that you have to change the words we use too. She suggests we should replace these really stigmatizing words like crazy with the word wild, because it better describes that feeling of a body that's just overwhelmed and on high alert. Okay, so if the problem is environmental and biological, then what's the solution? Well, the text lays out a very specific path toward healing, and she calls it the restoration protocol. The protocol itself is based on 4 key practices: doing periodic fasting for cellular repair, using binders like clay and charcoal to help pull toxins out of the body, drinking healing teas, and taking digestive enzymes to help restore the gut. And you can see the goal here isn't just physical. It's not just about getting relief from things like bloating. The author describes the ultimate aim as finding deep peace by decluttering the body from the cells all the way up, which in turn declutters the soul. Now, this is really important. To fully get where this is all coming from, the text makes it really clear that we need to understand the personal story and the urgent mission that's driving all of this. This is not some abstract theory. It's born from some very real lived experience. This quote, "It is not mental health," it's part of this really urgent plea the author is making against a proposed change to Canadian law. The law would allow for medical assistance in dying for mental illness, and her argument is incredibly passionate, that these are not mental illnesses to begin with. They are treatable biological conditions. And you have to understand, her advocacy comes from a place of severe personal crisis. The author says she's unable to work, that she's living in extreme poverty, and she blames it all on the effects of sick building syndrome, an illness she feels the medical system just refuses to even recognize. And really, this is the core of her message. It's a message of solidarity. It's a call out to anyone else who feels like their profound physical symptoms are just being dismissed by mainstream systems. A message that says, hey, you are seen and you are not alone in this fight. So really, the whole thing leaves us with this much bigger question. This framework, which comes from one person's intense experience and advocacy, it's a huge challenge to the models we have. And it forces us to ask, what happens when a person's lived reality of their illness just doesn't fit into the diagnostic boxes we've created? And how are we supposed to navigate that divide?
All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking at a pretty specific and urgent take on the link between our health and our environment. It's all built around this idea of the canary in the coal mine. You know, the idea that some people's bodies are acting as living, breathing warning signs for all of us.
And this quote from the source material really gets to the core of it. The argument here is that all these chronic, kind of mysterious symptoms people are experiencing, they aren't a sign that your body is broken or your mind is failing. No. The idea is that they're actually a very smart, logical response to an environment that's become toxic. So it's not a failure, it's a warning.
So naturally, that leads to a couple of huge questions, right? What is this warning that the source is talking about? And maybe even more important, who is this warning actually for? To figure that out, we've got to look at the evidence that's presented, and that starts with what the source calls Exhibit A.
Now, the basis for this whole argument isn't some brand new discovery. It actually goes back over 30 years to a major scientific signal, a flare that went up in a medical journal, a signal the source claims we've basically ignored ever since.
So let's picture it. The year is 1992. A team of Danish researchers publishes this massive paper in the British Medical Journal, which is, a huge deal. And this wasn't just some small one-off study. It was a meta-analysis, which means they pulled together the data from 61 different studies from all over the world. Super powerful stuff.
And what they found? Well, it was all summed up in one pretty shocking number. 50%.
Yep, a 50% drop in average sperm counts globally in just about 50 years. I mean, that is a gigantic biological shift in what is historically a blink of an eye. The source points to this as the first undeniable large-scale alarm bell going off.
So, the big question is, what was causing this? Well, the source points the finger directly at something called endocrine disruptors. These are chemicals that are all around us. We're talking microplastics, heavy metals, mycotoxins from mold. And the whole idea is that they interfere with our body's super delicate systems, like our hormones and our nervous system.
Okay, so a study on male fertility from 1992. It's definitely concerning, no doubt. But you might be wondering,
How does the source connect that one specific biological signal to the much bigger issues of chronic illness and mental health struggles that we're seeing today? Well, this is where the argument gets really personal.
And that brings us to Exhibit B. To explain who's most at risk in this environment, the source puts forward this really unique theory. It's called the firstborn flash.
Here's how it's supposed to work. It's basically a three-step process. First, over the course of her life, a mother's body accumulates toxins from the environment. Second, during her first pregnancy, a really big chunk of that stored toxic load gets passed on to that firstborn child. And third, and this is the key part, this early exposure supposedly primes that child's nervous system to be on high alert from the second they're born.
Now, according to this theory, this flash of toxins doesn't hit everyone the same way. The source points to some really specific profiles that it says are the most vulnerable. We're talking about people who identify as highly sensitive persons, or HSPs, firstborn children who end up taking on a caregiving role for their parents, becoming parentified, and just generally people described as healers and feelers.
So when you combine this high-alert biology with a big emotional burden, it can lead to a state that the source has a very specific name for: petrification. And this isn't just a feeling. It's described as a deep, physiological freeze response. It's the body itself reacting to an overwhelming world, and on the outside, it can look exactly like a mental illness. And this right here, this is the absolute core of the argument. It's a direct challenge to how we normally diagnose these things. It's proposing a total shift in how we see the problem, from illness to injury. So you've got two sides. On one side, there's the conventional view. The diagnosis is often mental illness, which implies the root of the problem is in the mind. But the sorcerer's view argues the diagnosis should be environmental injury, saying the problem actually starts in the body's reaction to toxins and trauma.
So this idea of an injury leads to what the source calls a leaky body. The theory goes that these toxins and chronic stress start to break down the body's natural defenses, like the lining of your gut or the blood-brain barrier. And once those walls are breached, toxins can get in and cause chaos everywhere, leading to symptoms that we would normally just call psychological.
So if the problem is really a physical injury, it makes sense that the signs of healing would also be physical, right? The source argues that real recovery isn't just a state of mind. It's marked by real, tangible biological signs: a healed gut, the ability to actually get deep, restorative sleep, and a nervous system that finally gets out of that constant fight or flight mode.
Now, this whole reframing of illness to injury, it's not just some interesting thought experiment. It all leads up to what the source presents as a really urgent verdict, which sparks a mission focused on one single idea: detoxification.
And to show just how high the stakes are, the source makes this incredibly provocative statement that the current system is offering expiration to people who really just need detoxification. It's a really stark way of framing this, not as a wellness journey, but as a life or death situation.
And this mission, it has a ticking clock. The source has designated March 2026 as the beginning of its final year of work, all building up to March 17th, 2027. And that specific date is when Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying Law, or MAID, is scheduled to expand to include mental health as the sole reason for eligibility.
So with that deadline looming, the mission becomes crystal clear. It is to completely flip the narrative. The entire goal is to successfully reframe these conditions as treatable, physical, environmental injuries before that legal change in Canada actually happens.
The call to action from the source is summed up in this one simple but really powerful phrase: we must flush the womb and the walls. And it's a call for a deep cleaning on two fronts: detoxifying our internal environment, our bodies, the womb, and our external environment, our homes and our lives, the walls.
And all of this, everything we've looked at today, it leaves us with one profound final question that really gets to the heart of this entire argument. Where do we even draw the line between our own personal biology and the health of the entire planet? Well, according to the source material we've explored, there is no line at all.
So today we're going to unpack a story that starts with one person's really tough health journey, but then it blows up into this massive global health issue. It's all about how our own immune systems, the very thing that's supposed to protect us, can end up becoming our own worst enemy. Can you just imagine being a teenager and having a doctor say that to you? I mean, wow, that one sentence right there, It just hits you with the terrifying reality of what an autoimmune diagnosis can mean. And it really sets the stage for this incredible story of going from patient to doctor. So how does anyone even get to that point? Well, it almost never starts with a bang. It's usually quiet, with all these symptoms that don't seem connected at all. But really, they're the first warning signs of a storm that's brewing inside the body. For her, it all started with these awful migraines when she was just a preteen. Then came the mysterious body pains, rashes, and this just bone-crushing fatigue. Finally, at 16, there was a name for it all, lupus. But the real gut punch came right after that. The doctors told her she had stage 4 kidney failure. The fight for her life was officially on. Okay, so what in the world is lupus? Well, in the simplest terms, it's a disease where your immune system just gets completely confused. Instead of just going after viruses and bacteria like it's supposed to, it starts making these antibodies that attack your own body. And that's what causes the rashes, the joint pain, and in her case, that devastating damage to her kidneys. Now, as absolutely terrifying as her story is, I want to be clear, this is not some rare, isolated case. Not at all. We are right in the middle of a silent epidemic. The number of people whose bodies are literally at war with themselves is, well, it's exploding. Get a load of this number. 7%. Every single year. That is the rate at which autoimmune diseases are increasing. I mean, that is just a staggering number. And it's a huge red flag that something in our world, our environment, our lifestyle is changing the way our immune systems are supposed to work. And it's not just one thing either. We're seeing these increases pretty much across the board, from neurologic diseases like MS to gut problems like Crohn's and conditions that attack the joints like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. It's a systemic problem affecting every part of the body. All right, so let's get into the science of this. What is actually going on here? Why does the body's own security team suddenly decide to go rogue and start attacking its own people? The absolute key here is that autoimmunity is basically a case of mistaken identity. Your immune system, for whatever reason, loses its ability to tell the difference between a real threat, like a virus, and self, your own healthy cells, and it just launches this massive attack. And this all comes down to a really important idea called tolerance. See, a healthy immune system is super smart. It's trained to find and destroy any of its own cells that might accidentally react to your own body. But in autoimmunity, that critical safety system breaks down. The system loses its tolerance, and suddenly the protectors become the attackers. So how does a breakdown like this even happen? Well, there are two big theories. The first is the leaky gut idea. Basically, the lining of your gut gets damaged, and it lets stuff into your bloodstream that really shouldn't be there, which totally confuses the immune system. The second theory is called collateral damage. Think of it like this. Your immune system is in a huge battle with a real virus, but in all the chaos, it accidentally tags some of your own tissue as an enemy. And from then on, the friendly fire just doesn't stop. This, of course, brings up a massive question. If a leaky gut is a potential trigger, what's causing that damage in the first place? Well, more and more, all the evidence is pointing right at our dinner plates. The diet that's so common these days, what people call the standard American diet, it basically creates this state of constant low-level inflammation. It's like it keeps your immune system on edge 24/7, always ready for a fight that never really comes. And who are the main offenders here? Well, it's the usual suspects, really. All that highly processed salt, tons of fried foods, and of course, all the sugary stuff. These foods are like constant irritants, telling your immune system there's always a battle that needs to be fought. And here, you can really see the domino effect. First, those inflammatory foods put the immune system on high alert. At the exact same time, they're physically damaging your gut. And that lets all sorts of toxins and things slip through, which then kicks your already agitated immune system into this dysfunctional overdrive, making it super likely to develop autoimmunity. Okay, so if our diet can pour fuel on this fire, that begs the question, can it also put the fire out? And it seems like the answer is a huge, resounding yes. And this is where we shift from just talking about the problem to talking about the solution. So yeah, there's definitely a genetic link to autoimmune disease, but here's the thing. Your genes are not necessarily your destiny. And that brings us to this amazing concept called gene silencing. What it means is that your lifestyle choices, and especially your diet, can actually tell your genes whether to turn on or stay off. And it really is this simple.
A diet that's packed with green vegetables can actively keep those problem-causing genes dormant, silenced. But without those protective foods, those exact same genes get the green light to wake up and express themselves, which can then lead to disease. So what does a diet that silences bad genes and calms everything down actually look like? Well, you can think of it as a healing portfolio of foods that are just packed with nutrients. Green veggies, onions, mushrooms, berries, and healthy fats from things like nuts and seeds. This is basically the toolkit for taking back control. And get this is how incredibly powerful this approach can be. A truly anti-inflammatory diet can chill out inflammation so effectively that it can actually lower your white blood cell count. Now, conventional medicine might look at that and say, whoa, that's too low. But what it really is a sign that your immune system is no longer in a constant state of emergency. It's finally at peace. And all of this leaves us with a really profound and honestly an empowering question. We've seen how what we eat can literally flip the switch and turn on the genes for disease. But if food has that kind of power, you have to wonder, what other diseases, what other genetic destinies could we turn off just by changing what's on our plate?
Let's talk about mold. It's that four-letter word that every homeowner dreads. There's so much fear, so much crazy information out there. So what's really going on? Well, we're going to cut right through all that noise and give you the straight-up facts.
And really, it all boils down to this, right? Is that patch of stuff in your home just a harmless, ugly spot? Or is it something more sinister, a hidden health threat? Look, the answer isn't a simple yes or no, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack together.
So our mission here is simple. Cut through the hype and empower you with the facts. We're not trying to freak you out. The goal is to give you the knowledge you need to tell the difference between a small cleanup job and a serious problem. That way, you can make the smart call for your house and for your family's health. Okay, so where do we even begin with all this? Let's start by totally busting the biggest myth out there, the idea that all mold is the same. It's just not true. There are huge differences, and getting a handle on the main categories, well, that's your first step to really being in control of the situation. So let's break it down. We're looking at 4 main categories. Think of these as our roadmap for today: cosmetic, allergenic, pathogenic, and the one everyone talks about, toxic. We're going to go from kind of annoying all the way to seriously dangerous. And I promise, understanding these 4 will completely change how you see mold.
All right, let's kick things off with the 2 most common players, annoyance and allergies. We're talking about the usual suspects, the kinds of molds you're most likely to run into, the ones that range from just being a pain to maybe being the real reason you've had that nagging cough forever.
So on one side, you've got what we call cosmetic mold. Think of it like an unwanted house guest. It's that ugly stain, that musty smell, but more importantly, it's a giant red flag telling you there's a moisture problem somewhere. Then you have allergenic mold. This one's the immune system trigger. It's the one that causes all those classic allergy symptoms and can even lead to more chronic stuff.
And seriously, don't write off allergenic mold as just the sniffles. We're talking way beyond that. It can kick off chronic nasal problems, trigger asthma attacks, and in some cases lead to really serious inflammatory lung diseases. For people who are immunocompromised, something like aspergillosis can be fatal. This is not something to mess around with.
Okay, now we're taking a big step up the danger ladder. We're moving past molds that just cause a reaction and into the territory of molds that are actual invaders. These are the pathogenic molds.
So what does that mean, pathogenic? Think of them like little invaders. They can literally get inside your body and start growing, causing actual infections. See, allergenic molds just kind of poke at your immune system, right? Pathogenic molds, they're trying to move in and set up shop. And it gets even more specific. Think of your body as a fortress. Some of these are primary pathogens. That's the well-trained army. They can break through the defenses of a totally healthy person. But then you have the opportunistic pathogens, the sneaky force. They wait for your body's defenses to be down for a moment of weakness, and then they attack. A super common example, believe it or not, Candida albicans, the fungus that causes yeast infections. All right, here we go. This is the one everybody asks about, the one everyone's afraid of. It's time to decode toxic mold. Let's finally separate the real science from all the scary headlines. Okay, if you remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. Toxic mold isn't really a type of mold. It's just a term people use for molds that can produce something called mycotoxins. The mold isn't the poison. The poison is what the mold makes.
And what are mycotoxins?
Well, they're basically chemical weapons produced by certain fungi. They are capable of causing disease and, yes, even death. I mean, get this. Some of them are so potent, they've actually been looked at for use as chemical warfare agents. That's how serious this stuff is.
This brings us to the biggest myth we need to bust right now. You've heard it a million times. Toxic black mold. Forget it. The color of the mold has nothing to do with its toxicity. The color just comes from its spores. You can have molds of literally any color, green, orange, white, that produce mycotoxins. You just can't judge its danger by looking at it.
So if color is useless, what's the deal? How do we know what's dangerous? We have to understand the real enemy here, the mycotoxins themselves. Let's dive a little deeper into the actual danger they pose. 70%, just let that sink in. 70% of people with confirmed exposure to toxic mold show symptoms of neurotoxicity. Yeah, that means these things are attacking the brain.
And what does attacking the brain feel like? We're talking about that classic brain fog, trouble thinking clearly, memory problems, even mood swings and seizures. But here's the really wild part. One of the hidden entry points is your eyes. They can be absorbed right through your eyes. So that simple paper mask you might throw on, it's not going to cut it.
So how tough are these things? Think you can just heat them up and kill them? Nope. Mycotoxins can survive temperatures up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Your oven doesn't even get that hot.
And it's not just heat, it's time. Scientists have literally found mold spores in 2-million-year-old rocks and revived them. They are incredibly resilient.
And this is maybe the most dangerous part. Common cleaners like bleach or acid, they don't work on mycotoxins. You might scrub away and kill the surface mold, the part you can see, but you leave behind those invisible chemical toxins to keep causing problems.
Okay, I know that all sounds pretty scary. So, what's the good news here? The good news is that now you know what you're up against, and that knowledge is power. So, let's shift gears and talk about your action plan.
Honestly, the best defense is a good offense. Be proactive, not reactive. The #1 rule, control moisture. Get a dehumidifier if you need one. Make sure your bathrooms and kitchen have good ventilation. And if you have a leak, any leak, fix it right away. Clean up spills. It sounds basic, but it's absolutely crucial.
But if there is one key takeaway from all of this, it's this. Don't try to be a hero. If you think you've got a real mold problem, especially after what we've just talked about, you need to call a pro. Seriously, it's the only way to be sure it's handled safely and effectively.
So I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We've talked about how resilient these mycotoxins are and how they can impact the brain. So what are the long-term effects of just low-level exposure over many, many years? It's a question science is still trying to answer, and it's exactly why being on top of this stuff is so incredibly important for your long-term health.
So, what if the things we call normal in our society, the constant stress, the hustle culture, even the way we raise our kids, what if all that is actually the root cause of our illnesses? Today, we're diving into the powerful work of Dr. Gabor Mate, and it really challenges everything we think we know about health.
He asks this really provocative question. What if our so-called normal way of life is actually, toxic? What if it's the very thing setting the stage for everything from anxiety and depression to autoimmune diseases and, even addiction?
Okay, so to really get this, Dr. Mate breaks down this idea of normal into two different types. First, you've got physiological normal. This is easy. Think about your body temperature, right? It has to stay in this super narrow, healthy range. That's just natural. But then there's societal normal, and this is just what we're used to. A perfect example he gives is how it's become normal in some places to let babies cry it out. But he pushes back and asks, is that really natural? His answer, absolutely not.
And this idea, it leads to a pretty radical way of looking at illness. Instead of thinking of sickness as some kind of failure of your body, what if we saw it as a totally logical reaction? This quote right here is really the heart of his whole argument. He's saying that when we get sick, it's not some random defect. It's actually a predictable, even normal response to abnormal circumstances, like stress, trauma, and disconnection. And this just completely flips the script. The whole focus shifts from asking, what's wrong with you, to what happened to you.
Here's a great way to see this in action. Take post-traumatic stress. We call it a disorder, right? That word itself implies something is wrong with the person. But what if we just reframed it? What if we called it a post-traumatic stress response? See, That simple change in one word it's profound. It stops pathologizing the person and starts us understanding their experience.
Okay, so this reframing of illness naturally leads us to another huge idea, the mind-body connection. For centuries, Western medicine has basically treated the mind and the body like they're in two totally different buildings, and Dr. Mate says this is a fundamental mistake.
And look, modern science is absolutely crystal clear on this now. Your emotional system, your immune system, your hormones, your nervous system, they are not separate departments. It's all one, single, deeply integrated unit. I mean, just think about it for a second. If someone yells at you, what happens? Your heart rate shoots up, your blood pressure changes instantly, your emotions have a direct physical impact on your body. They're totally inseparable.
All right, so if we accept that the mind and body are connected, let's look at a really staggering statistic. A full 80%, 80, of all autoimmune diseases happen in women.
So, why? Why that huge number? I mean, that can't just be some random biological quirk, right? A disparity that massive, it forces you to ask, what is going on in our culture that could be contributing to this? So what could the link possibly be? Well, think about it like this. What's the job of healthy anger? It's to protect your boundaries, right? To say no. And what's the job of your immune system? To protect your physical boundaries from invaders. See? They kind of do the same job. But in our culture, women especially have often been socialized to be the caretakers, to put everyone else's needs first, and to suppress their own anger. They're taught it's not nice. So if you spend a lifetime repressing your emotional boundary system, it makes sense that you might also be repressing your physical boundary system, your immune system. Okay, let's switch gears to another big one, depression. The clue is literally in the word. To depress something just means to push it down. So, the obvious question is, in depression, what exactly is getting pushed down?
Our authentic emotions, our true self. See, when you're a little kid, you have two fundamental needs. The first is attachment, that connection to your caregivers for survival. The second is authenticity, the freedom to be yourself, to feel your real feelings. But what happens if your parent gets upset or withdraws when you're angry? Well, the child has to make an impossible choice. And to survive, they'll always choose attachment over authenticity. They learn to push down that anger, to suppress that part of themselves, to keep that vital connection. And after decades, a whole lifetime of pushing down those true feelings, that can show up as depression.
Now, this exact same logic totally transforms how we view addiction. For so long, society has just moralized it, right? We see it as a weakness, a moral failing, a bad choice.
And for decades, the question we've all been asking is, why the addiction? The focus is always on the substance, on the behavior. But what if that's completely the wrong question? Dr. Mate says we have to reframe it completely.
The real question isn't why the addiction. The real question is why the pain? Because the addiction, that's not the main problem. It's somebody's attempt to solve the problem of their underlying emotional pain.
This quote just says it all. The addiction, it was never the primary issue. It was an attempt to solve a problem. That behavior, whatever it is, provides some temporary relief, some pleasure, some escape from a pain that's become unbearable, often because of past trauma. It's a tragic solution for sure, but it's a solution nonetheless.
Okay, so if being disconnected from our true selves is at the root of so much of our suffering and illness, then it just makes sense that the way back, the path to healing, has to be about reconnection.
So what does that look like? Well, first, it's about authenticity, letting yourself feel your real emotions again. It also means reconnecting with healthy anger, learning that it's okay, even necessary, to say no and protect your boundaries. And maybe most importantly, it's about finding your agency, that powerful realization that you aren't that helpless little kid anymore. You're an adult now, and you can take charge of your own life.
And this, I think, is the most beautiful takeaway from all of this. Healing isn't about becoming someone new or fixing something that's broken inside you. It's really about recovering the person you were always meant to be, that authentic self that just got buried under all the trauma and cultural expectations. That person is still in there, waiting to be found.
So, I want to leave you with a question to just chew on. Take a look at your own life, your job, your relationships, your stress levels. What part of your normal might actually be an abnormal circumstance making you sick? And more importantly, what would it look like to start reconnecting with what's truly natural and authentic for you?
All right, let's cut through all the noise.
I mean, when it comes to nutrition, the advice is everywhere, and it's all conflicting. So we're going to go beyond the fads and see what the actual science says about the best diet for us. Let's just dive right in.
It's a total minefield, isn't it? One day fat is evil, the next day carbs are the enemy. You're told to eat more protein, but also eat less meat. It's confusing. So the big question we're tackling today is actually pretty simple, but the answer, well, it's profound. Based on all the evidence, what should we really be eating to live longer, healthier lives?
To find that answer, we're going to look in two really important places. First, we're going to rewind the clock and look at our own biology. I mean, what are our bodies actually designed to eat? And then we'll fast forward and look at people today who are already living incredibly long, healthy lives and see what they all have in common.
You know, this timeline really puts things in perspective. For almost all of human history, we're talking over 2 million years, we were gatherer-hunters. Our diet was overwhelmingly made up of unrefined plants. Animal domestication, which brought in dairy and a lot more meat, that's just a tiny blip, maybe 8,000 years ago. And all the highly processed foods, the refined flour, the seed oils that are everywhere today, that's all happened in just the last 200 years. It's kind of like we spent 2 million years designing a car to run on unleaded, and for the last 200, we've been trying to jam diesel in the tank.
And you can actually see these principles playing out right now. Researchers found these 5 blue zones around the world, these little pockets where people live the longest, healthiest lives on the planet. And you look at them, from California to Japan, their cultures are totally different, but their diets, they all share this one powerful common thread. They're all 95 to 100% based on whole plant foods.
So what does that really mean? What kind of an impact does that have? Well, let's just take Loma Linda, California. It's the only blue zone here in the US. The people there live on average a full decade longer than other Americans. 10 years! And this isn't just about adding years to your life, it's about adding life to your years. They're staying active and healthy well into their 90s and beyond.
And the clinical data, oh man, it backs this up with just staggering clarity. When you look at these massive long-term studies, you see this undeniable pattern emerge. As you move along the spectrum from omnivore toward a fully plant-based diet, the risk for our biggest killers, like hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and cancer, it just plummets. I mean, look at this. Vegans show up to a 75% lower risk of high blood pressure. So the takeaway is crystal clear. The more whole plant foods you eat, the lower your risk of chronic disease.
Okay, so now that we have this historical and scientific blueprint, we can start to unpack some of the biggest and frankly most confusing diet myths out there. It's time to separate the facts from the fads.
Let's kick things off with a super popular one, the keto diet. Sure, it can cause some short-term weight loss, but the science is pretty clear on this. A keto diet is so low in carbs that it basically eliminates all those health-promoting plant foods we were just talking about. That makes it, as one expert put it, grossly inadequate nutritionally. In fact, one big study found that people on the lowest carb diets actually had a 32% increased risk of dying from any cause. Yikes!
And this brings up such a critical point. The word carb has been totally unfairly demonized. The real issue isn't the carbs themselves, it's where they come from. On one side, you've got whole food carbs, vegetables, fruits, beans, and they are packed with fiber, vitamins, and all these amazing protective compounds that actually reduce your disease risk. On the other side, you've got refined carbs, white flour, added sugar, which are stripped of nutrients and increase your disease risk. Lumping them all together is just a huge mistake.
And speaking of demonized ingredients, let's talk about gluten. You'd think it was public enemy number one, with about a third of Americans actively trying to avoid it. But is it really the problem that it's made out to be for most of us?
Well, the reality is probably not. Only about 1% of the population has celiac disease and absolutely has to avoid gluten. Maybe another 6% have a genuine non-celiac sensitivity. But check this out. One study found that a whopping 86% of people who thought they were gluten sensitive actually weren't. For the vast majority of people, avoiding gluten doesn't have any medical benefit at all.
Okay, now let's turn our attention to two of the most hotly debated foods in all of nutrition, soy and animal protein. Are they our friends or are they foes?
Soy is the perfect example of just how confusing nutrition can get. I mean, it's been accused of causing everything from cancer to messing with your hormones. So what does the science actually say? Is it a superfood or is it something we should actually worry about?
Well, the evidence is actually overwhelmingly in soy's corner. Far from causing cancer, studies show that whole soy foods actually reduce the risk of breast and prostate cancer. And hey, it's a staple food in 2 of the blue zones, Okinawa and Loma Linda. The key here, though, is to focus on whole, organic forms like tofu, tempeh, and edamame, and try to avoid the highly processed soybean oil, which is a totally different thing.
All right, let's tackle the big one. This idea that you need to eat muscle to build muscle, that animal protein is essential if you want to be strong and healthy. I mean, this belief is absolutely everywhere, from fitness blogs to your doctor's office, but is it true?
The answer, from the research, is a pretty clear and simple no. Study after study has put this to the test. They take 2 groups, have them do the exact same workout, but one group gets protein from animal sources and the other gets it from plants. The result? Absolutely no difference in muscle gain. Your body builds muscle from the work you do and the amino acids you eat, and it really doesn't care if those amino acids came from a chicken or a chickpea.
In fact, not only is animal protein not necessary for muscle, but too much of it can be really dangerous. I mean, look at this. This finding is just stunning. For people between 50 and 65, a diet high in animal protein was linked to a 4 times increase in cancer death risk. To put that in perspective, that's a risk comparable to smoking 20 cigarettes a day. Just let that sink in for a second.
So, if the best diet is one built around whole plant foods, what are the practical things we need to know to make sure we're getting everything our body needs to really thrive long-term?
First up, let's talk about fats. The essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6, are absolutely crucial for our brains and our hearts, but our bodies can't make them, so we have to get them from food. Here's the problem. Most modern diets are just flooded with pro-inflammatory omega-6s from seed oils and way too low on the anti-inflammatory omega-3s. Getting that balance right is a really critical step.
So, to put it all into practice, here are 4 key steps. Number 1, prioritize your omega-3s every day. Think ground flax, chia seeds, or walnuts. And you might want to consider an algae-based supplement. 2, you have to supplement with vitamin B12. This is non-negotiable if you're eating fully plant-based. 3, get your vitamin D checked. Honestly, most people are deficient, no matter what they eat, so a supplement is often a good idea. And 4, make sure you're getting enough calcium from things like fortified plant milks, tofu, and leafy greens like kale.
Okay, we've gone through a ton of science and a lot of data. But to wrap things up, I want to ground all of this in a really powerful story that shows what's possible when you put these ideas into action, because it is never, ever too late to make a change.
This is Dr. Marty Wasserman. At 80 years old, he felt overweight and decided he needed to do something. So he switched to a whole food plant-based diet. And within a year, he lost 30 pounds, got off some of his medications, and, get this, at age 81, he completed a grueling 4.4-mile open water swim. He even fit back into the wetsuit he wore 25 years ago. His story is just this incredible testament to the body's amazing ability to heal itself.
You know, the evidence from our deep past, from the world's healthiest people, and from cutting-edge science, it all points in the exact same direction. A diet filled with whole plant foods is the human blueprint for a long, vibrant life. Dr. Wasserman rewrote his health story when he was 80. So the final question really is for you. Your health is a story that's still being written. What will your next chapter be?
Hello, love. I just wanted to add a PS that these are some things you should get when you're ready to start your detox. The psyllium husks. And then when you start eating again, we're going to do chia seed water. If you don't know what that is and you're constipated, you put about a cup and a half of water in a mason jar. Make sure it's clean water. I use Brita filter. You can even do even cleaner than that. I just can't afford all the fun things that we can buy to heal our bodies yet. I say not yet. And then on the St. Patrick's Day, I'm wearing lots of green if you're just watching this as a short. And so we get the psyllium husks and we do chia seed water at the end of the day after your last meal, whenever that is. Take a couple, you could do 2 to 3 to start. And if it doesn't help, go up to 5. It's very potent to keep you regular. It's also very good for your skin. And we're going to do magnesium. There's 3 different kinds. I can't afford them all right now, but they're all listed on my Amazon send-in. And then we're going to do the vitamin Ds with K2. They have to be taken all together. quercetin. We're also going to take resveratrol, and hyaluronic acid is also quite good. And we're going to take this liver support. We're going to do digestive enzymes 5 to 10 minutes before each meal. But if I've forgotten and I take it during the meal, it's been no worries. Knock on wood. Berberine, we're going to take about 10 minutes into our meal. We're going to be eating slowly, mindfully. Before we eat, we're going to do the same breath before we go to bed. And that breath looks like this. It's going to be loud. So, warning. All right. So, we're going to go. Oh, that's stress, that's grief, and that's stored traumas that we're letting go from deep in our gut. And we're going to have a soft belly. So, we're going to breathe in and let go with a soft belly. I didn't hear that word soft belly as a competitive athlete and lifelong just lover of keeping my core flat because I had a bloated Buddha belly my whole life since the 80s, which is now SIBO and all the toxins that are in my body, that I thought I had to keep my abs in all the time. So when I was meditating for the first time, which was a week-long silent retreat, and my lovely instructor, Sue Child, she told me, she's the Waterloo Riverview Dharma Center. Check her out. She does things, retreats. I hope to go to her next one in November and in the spring at a convent. It's a beautiful space, lots of greenery, and folks like us, the animal whisperers. There's lots of geese there and deer. I met a beautiful soul there, Netta, who was afraid of geese. And I remember taking her hands and I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. We can go. And they didn't bother us. So that's why I like to say we have goosey schools, but we're silent geese because we're passionate about what we are doing. Those of us who get it, get it. And that's why my message has been primarily for holistic athletes who are doing all the things, not taking the man-made meds, and they're trusting their bodies because they know we are nature and nature can heal anything in the right environment, right? But it's for you too, Bill, who needs to rebuild your heart because you've been dealing with so much stress and your living situation has been stressful and your relationships has been stressful. I'm speaking to V, whose husband had a terrible accident and her mother had just passed. The chronic stress that all of this drives to our cells, let alone the toxic air that we're breathing in. This is for anybody who's willing to stop and to start going back to our first 1,000 days of life. And together we can heal our Bodhi berry peace tree. That's what I like to call it, so that it will have strong roots to thrive to 100 plus years. Vicky, I hope you can hear this message because you are such a go, go, go. You or me. And I can't tell you to stop because that's going to offend you. And when I told you, well, you have to stop and pause for 3 weeks while you were on vacation, taking a different kind of pause, and I'm worried about you because you're going on these planes. I'm worried about everybody who's taking babies on their planes. Don't. I had another bad incident with my digestion in my brain when I went to go see my dad in Bermuda when I was 10 with my brother. I felt so bad, but not as bad as I did in 2018 going to that funeral. The air, we were on these really small planes. You know, you can feel it rattling. And I hadn't been on a plane since I was 10 when I went to Bermuda to see my dad. So, yes, so I just wanted to say it's time for us to take care of ourselves, and we can. And those of you who have more than $100 a month for food, you can buy higher grade food, which is a blessing. But those of us who are frugal and have to do things mindfully and fast a little bit longer than we might want to just to stretch a buck, that's okay too. We're in this together, right? So for us who don't have a lot of money, we'll be buying frozen and we can't buy everything. We won't get to the 30 different strains of fruits and vegetables, but just try to vary what you buy each week or whenever you need to refill your supply, because we're trying to rebuild our microbiome like a jungle. And a jungle has diversity with lots of plants and trees, or else it wouldn't survive, just like us. Right? And what's happening to the earth is happening to us. Like Harrison Ford says, what happens to the planet happens to us. And it's happening to our health from what we breathe in, what we put in, what we eat in. We have to be mindful of everything when we are trying to save our lives. And I believe I was. Either that, or I was headed to MS, which is on the rise, which is definitely related to chronic stress. And it's a lot of these women that I see that are like me. We've had miscarriages and we just keep on going. Fred, I'm speaking to you and your family. You guys have been dealing with so much. I'm here for your daughter. I'm always here, and I hope she's doing well. And also her mom, who is also expiring before she desires any time now. If you are looking for peace and you are at your end of your life, you can reach out to me at De-Stress with DSOS on LinkedIn, and I can help you find peace in your final hours. It is a gift and a blessing for me to be able to share this with you. And I want to see you well and at peace. This came to me when I was walking and I was with the CMHA and I was getting help with my eating disorder, which would have taken normally 3 years, but it took me just over a year and a half because I was determined. And I was likened to somebody, my therapist said, to this Jewish survivor from the Holocaust. His name escapes me at the moment. If my ex was here, he would remember. I bought his book. If I remember, I'll share it down there. Also, my Amazon Zen Den has all of these books. And she said she likened me to him because he never gave up. And he also had hope in humanity. And this is what I'm hoping for now. The doctors don't know everything, especially when plants can heal us. But only if they're healthy and they're not toxic and we're not in a histamine overload or a cytokine storm, because then these will cause more harm. We need to do detoxing first. 3 weeks of fasting with a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. We can do healing teas and then all of your supplements that you'll be taking that are necessary. I hope this was helpful. Take good care. Ciao for now. Sending loving kindness from Canada's capital. You are love, you are peace, and you are the medicine. Ciao for now.
Softly, my soul feels allergic to the light. After all the words that just weren't right. But a little hope is all I need to plant a gentle healing seed. Mama, love you.